This is Nathan Bowman with Draper Inc. Today we're going to talk about the updated motor limit tool. More specifically, we're going to cover how to configure a center scheduler interface, both from a motor limit tool and from the center scheduler interface itself. So in this scenario, I have my SSI connected to my NDC3 along with my motor and my motor limit tool. So the first thing I want to do is set my motor up into a group. I have the limit set on my motor, so I can go about this one of two ways. My first way I'm going to do this is via the motor settings, so I'm going to use my arrows to navigate to motor settings, hit enter. I'm going to select motor. I only have one motor here, but I'm going to go through select motors. My motor is jogging. To identify itself, I'm going to hit enter again to select that motor. Then from here, I'm going to navigate down to set groups, hit enter. From here, it's going to load up our 64 available groups. As you can see, I have this motor assigned to a group already. I'm going to go ahead and add it to a secondary group. So I'm going to select group 2, hit enter. Group 2 is now selected. Now I'm going to use my back button to go to the main menu. From here, I can also set my motors into groups by going to group settings. So I'm going to use my down arrow to navigate to group settings, hit enter. From here, I'm going to select group motors. And then I'm going to be presented with my 64 available groups. I can select any of these groups. I'm going to jump down to group 4, hit enter. From here, I'm going to be able to select all of my motors, select none if an issue is made and you need to start over, or there will be a list populated of every available motor. Since I only have one motor connected, there is only one motor showing, so I'm going to navigate to that motor, hit enter to select it. That motor is now part of group 1, 2, and 4. Okay, now we're going to set up our sensor groups from the motor limit tool. You have 8 available sensor groups available to program motors into. Please note there are only 4 sensor ports available, but you can configure up to 8 sensor groups based on those 4 sensors. So again, there are 2 ways that we can set up sensor groups. I'm going to show you both of those ways. Starting out, we're going to go to device settings from the motor limit tool. It's going to populate any controls that are on the network. In this instance, I only have one SSI connected, so it's only showing one sensor. I'm going to go ahead and select this. Now, if I had multiple SSIs or multiple controls on the network, what you see happening now is the SSI is identifying itself. So if there are multiple SSIs that you need to configure and you're unsure which is which, this screen on the motor limit tool would populate every SSI that's connected to the network. From there, you can use your up and down arrows to navigate through the various SSIs. Once selected and highlighted, the SSI will begin to flash to identify itself, just for easier identification to determine which SSI that you're trying to work with. I only have one connected, so I'm going to go ahead and select enter to begin configuring this SSI. And from here, I have the option to rename the SSI and assign the 8 groups. So first, I'm going to go ahead and rename this SSI. That way I can identify it easier and don't have to look for the flashing screen next time I come on site. The default name is SSI1, so I'm going to hit select or enter. And the only thing that you can change is the numerical value and then the adder. So I'm going to name this SSI3, hit enter. Now I have my secondary adder numerical value I can adjust, so I'm going to make this 3-1. I like that, so I'm going to navigate down to confirm, hit enter to save. Now the screen repopulates. You can see that the name has changed to SSI 3-1. Again, this is something that you would want to document on your IntelliFlex IO planning sheet just for future reference if you have to come back to site. Okay, for the sensor groups, they are all by default set up as masters, meaning that they are going to operate every IO motor on the network until specified otherwise. I've gone ahead and I've placed my motor into groups 1, 2, and 4, so I'm going to go ahead and set up my sensor groups to respond to those same groups accordingly. So for group 1, I am going to change that from a master by navigating with my down arrow, select group 1 and hit enter. Master is now highlighted. From here, I can navigate through my available 64 groups. I'm going to use my down button to navigate to group 1. So I want group 1 to be part of group 1. Hit enter. that is going to save. Now group 1 is part of the motor group 1. So we're going to go to group 2. It is also set up as a master. I'm going to change that. I want that to be part of group 2, so I'm going to use my down arrow to navigate to group 2. Hit enter. It will save. And then for my last group, I'm going to go down to group 3. And if we remember, we put this motor into group 1, 2, and 4. So I'm going to go ahead and change this from a master to group 4. Perfect. Now my SSI has my 3 sensor groups set up. Now I can back out to the main menu. Now the secondary way to set up your groups is by navigating down to the group settings menu. Hit enter. From here, I can either group motors or group devices. Since I'm configuring an SSI, I want to group the device. Hit my down arrow, then enter. Again, from here, I have my 64 available groups. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to select group 1. My sensor populates. SSI 3-1 is already configured, so I'm going to hit enter. All right, SSI 3-1, I can see that I have it as part of group 1, nothing else currently. So if I wanted to assign that to multiple groups, I could go ahead and select group 3. Now I could go back, and as I'm working on additional motors, if I want additional motors in part of group 3 or 1, I can simply do that from the motor settings as I'm setting the limits. Thanks for watching. If you have any more questions or concerns, please contact Draper Technical Support at 1-800-238-7999 and select option 3.